time for God, keeping my eyes focused. The third thing I've been looking at is, okay, well, I have to be prepared for if I do slip up. The goal is to not slip up. The goal is to be there. Okay, what do I do if I do slip up? And going back to that movie, it didn't end there with the trainer. Okay, so the trainer, he's preparing her, like, yes, you attack and you don't stop. And then he says, okay, so what if he gets a hit? He gets you. She's like, impossible. I'm prepared. He's like, no. To be prepared, you have to prepare for the impossible. And so he gets her mind like, okay, if he does this, what are you going to do next? And, he prepares her for, like I said, for if he comes after her. And I just thought of that part of the movie today and thinking of, okay, we got to, if I'm making him a priority, I need to be able to come back. I messed up, I come back. Same with working out. Skip so many days, it's not over forever. I come back. Or eating right. It seems like every day is day one. Like, okay, I had the rest of the sandwiches. Day one, again. But I'm gonna be excited about that day one, not like to prepare to fail that day. But if I do mess up, I can't be like, okay, well, I'll just, mess up this whole week. I have to come back, pull myself back. Now, with kind of going full circle here, talking about going to church. In college, I went to church maybe 2 times. My first year, I was not going to church. And I knew I should be in church because I felt the conviction, that I tried to push it down. But y'all, I'm going to tell you the excuse, right? You're going to make moves and make excuses. This is ridiculous. I did not want to ask anyone for a ride to church because I didn't have a car. And I felt embarrassed, okay? So I don't know why, but I just didn't want to ask anyone. So when I would come home, I would go to church with my mom, and they would always ask me, you been going to church? And I knew better than to lie. Plus, I think they might have checked up. So I was like, no, I haven't, and you really need to go, And every time, I'm just like, oh, they're going to ask me, And y'all, the longer it went that I didn't go to church, and then it turned into, well, now I can't go back because they're going to be like, where have you been? And you just get further and further. It's easy to get into that is what I'm saying. And so I need to make sure if I slip up that I come back. Okay, yes, I've messed up, and so now I'm going to start coming back to church. And I should have left that because I might be thinking, oh, they're trying to see where I've been when really they're like, we missed you. So I don't need to let, and even if somebody was, I guess, looking at me like, oh, you haven't been at church. So what? I'm gonna tell God that? Well, they're making me feel like, that's gonna be my excuse. That's so embarrassing. But that's what I did because I didn't want to have to explain where I've been. So, like I said, it's the same with anything in our lives that we're trying to accomplish. If you're going to college and you stopped for 5-10 years. Are you going to just stop forever? If you want to go back, then go back. At the gym, I'm using a lot of gym examples because I'm telling you that's when all these things started coming to me. And there's one that definitely came to me. I do a lot of different classes. I mostly prefer the high intensity interval training because I just jumped in there, y'all. I just went from nothing to the hardest classes, and it was awful. But I thought, I'm going to get this. I'm going to be able to plank for a minute. I'm going to be able to do this. And there's a whole list of things I still can't do. And there's a whole list of things I now can do. But I try different classes also. So some of the classes they have are heated. They turn on the heat. This is awful. And people choose to do this. And this one lady chooses the hot corner. That's what we call it, the hot corner, the hot box. It's all the way in the corner where it's the hottest. And you're dripping even before the class starts, okay? And we're not doing we're not running sprints, it's a small room. But I think this class was bar that I went to. So I'm dripping. And they joke, don't go downstairs. No, it's heated. It's heater on. Now you are welcome to go downstairs or stop whenever you want to. But if you go downstairs in that nice, cool lobby, you are not going to come back. And I remember one of my friends was like, don't go down there. You won't go back. And it's, made me think of how we can get to that point where oh, this feels good sleeping in on Sunday, on And I thought of that whenever I went. So when I did that one class, I don't prefer to go back, and I haven't been back. Now I might go back in the winter, but I'm not coming back to that class because I know. And I did the whole class, and the kids are like, "Did you go to the pool?" No, I didn't go to the pool. But the point is that it is easy to slip up and then just not come back because freedom, I can do whatever I want to do, and sometimes you even have people encouraging you that, like, whatever, like, live YOLO, live your life. So I can't go in that pool lobby if that's my goal, to be up there. So and thinking of keeping our mind set on Him and coming back whenever we do mess up. I was looking at Isaiah 26:3. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength. I'm sorry, that was my own notes. But keeping at peace sounds so great. And when I am doing what I should be doing, I do feel just that, there's nothing I have. We always hear about when you lie, and you have to lie to cover up a lie, and another lie, and then you have to remember all this stuff. Whereas if you just say the truth, then there's nothing to remember. It's just the truth. It's that peace. I know that I've shared this before. I'm going to get Kenny Wayne in trouble. There was one time when Kenneth and I were first married, maybe a few months into marriage, he had to go to their house to work on something, and it was at night, so he went. And I'm there at the house, and Kenny Wayne called me. He's like, "Hey, let me speak to Humpty Dumpty." I'm like, "Oh, he's not here. He's there." Because it had been like an hour, so I know he had made it there. I'm like, "He's not here." I said, "My husband says he's there. He is there." I was just joking with him. He's like, "I can't fool you." But in his defense, I think he knew that I'm like that. I think if I had trouble with that, he wouldn't say that. But just that comfort to know, your spouse, and hey, I know what they're saying is true, so I don't have to worry about that. And actually, while we're on that subject, also early on when we were married, Kendrick's first wife, Shauna, there was a night where we were at home and somebody, maybe it was Amy or someone, called Kenneth's like, "Hey, where you at?" I said, "I'm at home." "Been at home." "Oh, Shauna swore she just saw you on West Little Rock or whatever." "No, I've been here." And she probably did see somebody that looked a lot like him. I don't think she just created this out of thin air. She saw someone that really looked a lot like him. But you can see how if he wasn't home, and if I'm letting my mind wander, how it could be like, well, she said she saw him. Well, you may have saw him, really thought you saw him, but she didn't see him. He was there. And these are all like examples of how you can really get to that point easily. And so just keeping my mind focused. And if I do break focus, like even in the planks, there have been times where, okay, I got up, I messed up, I lost the form. Okay, get back. It's not over. We still have time to get it right. In that minute, like we'll usually have a minute. Well, I want to get it right before that minute's up. I don't want to wait and be like, I could have gone back. So making him a priority, keeping my focus on him, making sure that if I do break that focus that I get back. The fourth thing that I started looking at was when I have it right, when I'm making him a priority, I'm doing all these things, it shows. Like I don't have to say it just shows. And it's the same with when I'm going to the gym and when I'm eating right, when every day has a different number, it shows. Like I don't have to, I'm going to get those results. One of the instructors tells us, when you're starting out, she says, the first few weeks, you're going to feel it. In the next 2 weeks, you're going to see it. And then in the next 2 weeks, you're going to hear it. Just meaning that you're going to feel different. You're going to feel better about yourself. And then you're going to start seeing results. And then the hearing it is other people are going to start seeing. You're going to hear about it. Like, oh, wow, I really seeing. Because you're doing it. Because you're applying it. And just applying it in my life, it's going to show. I know that one verse that comes to mind is in Matthew, and I think almost all of us have this memorized. My kids have this memorized. Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Because it's all going to come back to God. That's why we do what we do, when the good that we do. It's all from God, and others are going to see that. That's what you're going to be known by. About a year ago or so, or something like that, there were some not so pleasant things said about me. Not really, I guess, to Kenneth. And, it didn't feel good because you want to say, I don't care what people think. And maybe I do a little, but I definitely care what my husband thinks. So I can't say I don't care what anybody thinks, because I do. I care what my husband thinks. And I was just praying to God, like, God, I just want you to show him. Because, it doesn't really matter if someone said some, negative to you about your spouse. It doesn't make you feel good. Well, after I prayed that, 3 different people that don't know each other, that he just ran into just in his daily routine, started saying these things about me, kind things about me. Like he went to the POA and he was paying the POA dues. They're like, oh, Heidi she just looks so happy. I think this was in the summertime. And I'm thinking, wow, like I wasn't like meaning to. Because it's not like I came in and said, it was just, watching me at the pool with the kids, and I'm thinking, oh wow, they usually I'm like, shut up! So I guess she missed that part. But just, yeah, and then at the bank, he went and got the bank, and, how's Heidi doing? That's how she talks. How's Heidi doing? Oh, it's just a pleasure to meet. And I was like, wow, God, like that just made me, okay, because I wanted him to see, but not for me. I didn't want to say, oh, but I'm a really good person, I promise. I wanted him to see it. And so if I am doing all of these things, it's going to show. I don't have to say it, it's going to show. Just like if I'm eating right, if I'm exercising, it's going to show. And so I have a group of scriptures regarding that, and then kind of lead into the next thing. In Colossians 3:17, beginning at 17, it says, and whatsoever ye do, in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord, in the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. And I'm going to go into the next one, but if I'm doing everything, if I'm doing everything with him in mind, doing everything for him, then I know it's going to be good, that I know it's going to apply in my life. But when I read that scripture, I kind of started reading the other ones, and I saw how it kind of looked like a little rule book, like it were instructions, after that. Because in verse 18 says, wives, this is what you need to do. Submit yourselves unto your own husbands as it is fit in the Lord. So, okay, I got it. If I'm going to do everything in the name of the Lord, that means I'm going to submit to my husband as a wife. And then husbands, it says in 19, love your husbands. Wives. Husbands, love your wives. I'm not teaching anything else, okay? And be not bitter against them. And it tells children what y'all need to be doing. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. And then 23, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord, and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. And so when I was looking over these things, I had like an aha moment. I don't know if y'all have ever read some over and over and over, and then you're like, whoa, I never thought of that. And I told Kenneth this a couple weeks ago. I said, when I was reading that, I always used to think of servants. I thought of like back in the old days, with the like silver set. Like I thought of those people. But I never thought of employees. He's like, yeah, that's what we're talking about. I'm like, oh, didn't even think of it. Not that I had trouble, because it's like I need a job, so I'm going to respect you. That's like really easy for me. But it made me think of a situation I did have with an employer. I first started at this job I'm at now in 2013, and the I guess superintendent, you could call her, I had never worked with her before. And when I got the job, I actually got it because of someone knowing me. I didn't even have to interview. He just called me up, hey, do you want a job? I'm like, yep, I want a job. Okay. So that was great. But I had never worked for her before. The person that hired me was under her. She was like on vacation or something. So we were having a meeting, and she doesn't really know me, okay? We're having a meeting, and our meetings are online conferences. We see each other, and then we can also like have a chat, like so you can chat. It's kind of like Skype. And so we're in a meeting, and the HR person was talking about paperwork and coming down there and everything. And I wrote in the chat, oh, are we having a faculty meeting in December? I don't know, I heard they had one last year, so that's what I was asking. And I was told no or whatever. Okay, cool. She texts me, we're still in the meeting, and she texts me, the superintendent, she says, I don't need you initiating meetings, that's my job. Okay. I do not want your job, and I'm not trying to. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not trying to, because I don't want to be I'm good being a teacher. Just a teacher. I'm good with that. But she doesn't know me. I just said, okay, it's me. But I'm like, she hates me. Oh my, I don't even know. Like, she already hates me. And I thought, well, as long as I'm doing my job, like, I don't need to kiss her, tush, but if I'm doing my job, then I'm going to win her back just by default. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I do what I'm told to do. I'm not going to come back at her, because like I said, I need a job, so I'm definitely not going to come back at her. So y'all, at the end of the year, I didn't do anything. I didn't bring her flowers, I didn't talk to her, I just did my job. And at the end of the year, we had our evaluation. And I'm like, sit down, we're alone too, y'all. So I sit down, this face to face, and she's like, I'm just, how are you doing? You want to be like me? And she's like, I'm just so pleased. Okay, I don't know what happened, because I didn't do anything extra. I didn't talk to her at all. Okay, the next year, I had a friend that wanted to apply. So she applied for the job, she had an interview. This same lady called her up and offered her the job. And she told her, well, let me, talk to my family about it, and I'll get back to you. And she told her, do you want the job or not? Okay, so my friend, calls me up afterward, I'm like, that is how she is? Not that it's okay, but, it's not an attack on you. I can tell you that, because she did the same with me. I don't know why she likes me now, but she does. But, and I think that kind of calmed her nerves, that it's not you. And that's what helps me sometimes, if I do feel, attacked. I don't even want to say attacked, because I never feel attacked. But if I do feel like someone's out to get me, sometimes I have to think okay, you know what? It looks like they're out to get other people too. It is not just me, okay? And that kind of makes me feel better. But I remember thinking, back when she told me not to initiate meetings, I thought, if that is how she just is, she's not going to be here. It's just not, you're going to pop off on the wrong person. That's what happens. If you're hot like that, it's only a matter of time. And you know what? There was one Wednesday in the middle of October, and those of you who are teachers can know that that is not the end of the semester or year or anything. It was a Wednesday morning in October where she emails us all about how she decided to step down. And we never heard anything else. Just like a fan said, what happened to her? But I know, I just know deep inside, if that's how she talks to people and treats people, it's a matter of time. Even though there's somebody above her too. So if she's talking to people like that, she's going to be talking to the wrong person. So that's why it's so important for me to have my mindset. And I'm reminded of when Walter talked about cussing and how it almost came up. He had to swallow the word before he said it in front of his mom. Because bit it off, yeah. Or threw it up, or whatever, swallowed it. But it's only a matter of time. If that's how I am, it's going to be like another scripture that my kids know too well. Even a child is known by their doings. If that's how I'm known by, it's a matter of time. And then no one can vouch for me, because that's how she is. That's what she does. And so it just came to me in studying all this, looking at applying it, and how that's what number 4 was, applying it and making sure that I'm always doing what God wants me to do, even the things that seem so tiny. And there are several things that seem tiny. Deborah was talking about one last week about how she can walk out of the store with some free groceries easily, because people don't really pay attention. She has to tell them, hey, please charge me for this. And she doesn't because she said, she doesn't because of God. She knows God sees, so it doesn't matter, little baby at the door doesn't look at her receipt. It doesn't matter if she could get away with it. She doesn't do it because she wants to please God. And that's how it needs to be for everything that I do. I know at the kids' school, at Zay and Jasmine and Trip, they all went through the pre-K. And at the pre-K, at the very front, they have 4 or 5 parking spots. And there's literally a sign in front of every spot. It says, do not park, or daycare van only, daycare van only, daycare van. They're trying to make it really plain, daycare van only, for these spots. Because daycare vans come up and get the kids and take them to daycare. And you're a pre-K teacher, you probably don't want that spot way over there, and dragging 25 pre-Kers, they want to be up front, okay? But time and time again, every morning I would text Kenneth, and every afternoon I'm like, there they go again. People like me, well, I'm not me doing that, but parents parking there, okay, to drop off their kids. Now, I can understand why. I think one is some parents think, they did it, so I'm going to do it. And again, if I'm going to be like that too, well, they did it, so I'm going to do it, so that's why I did it. They did it. That's not going to sit well with God.
That's right.
But I know another thing is, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Nothing's going to happen to me. There's no consequence. And there is no consequence. But I can understand. I'm like, in regards to that especially, like, hey, it says that, I'm just going to park here where I have to walk 10 extra steps, and I'm just going to do that. I don't care if 3 of the spots are there, or 1. I'm not going to park there, because it says don't park there. And so, I know several teachers there, and there was one day where they had, and a few days actually, but one day in particular where all the spots were taken, and there's this man trying to park, and they can't go anywhere because all of them are taken. It's so crowded. And they were really frustrated. The teacher's like, we got a sign. Because I would tease them, hey, maybe you should have a sign. Like we do. I'm like, I know, I'm kidding. But they were like, it's just so frustrating. I said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. The only way probably that you're going to eliminate that problem is like writing people tickets or something. Because some people they're going to do it if there's a consequence. If God's going to strike me dead right then I'm going to do it. If somebody's running with a knife, I'm going to run faster. I'm going to do those sprints then really fast. Oh, sorry. And speaking of that, like I said, at the gym, all these things coming to me. One of the instructors, they're encouraging us, and we joke that they yell at us, which they do, but it's to encourage us. And I remember we were running sprints one time, and one of the instructors was like, that's not a sprint. No, they're just jogging. She's like, run like someone's chasing you. She's like, run like someone's chasing your kids. I was like, oh, okay. It's just funny. It's hilarious. She's hilarious, okay? But, when you have that, if that were the case, I'm going to run faster. But I need to do that. I need to put my all, even when, no one's watching. So if no one's watching me, I'm not going to walk, or Deborah's not going to, a cart full of goodies, because she knows that God's watching. And that's all that it needs to take. It doesn't matter if no one else is watching. But the fact of the matter is sometimes people are watching. And there are other people that might be like, hey, I'm going to park there too, because everybody else is parking there. Or hey, I'm going to do that too, because hey, she's a Christian and she's doing that, so it must be okay. So sometimes there are people watching. I'm reminded of you when you were talking about, and I'm going to wrap this up soon, because I have one more. But and we talked about this after, when you talk about how there's some parents that come in with their kids. Yeah, I got a couple under 12. They're like, I'm 15 years old. We've done that. And when you said that, I was like, oh, I have done that. All to save $5, right? Or like $2. That's what is really embarrassing. But but there are people watching. There's kids watching. You may think they're not listening. That's when they're listening. And always doing the right thing. My kids are watching me park there if I park that. One time Kenneth was with me. He's like, no, Miss Here, we can park. I'm like, no, we're not parking there. Sis is watching. And she will tell everybody, too. She will. If she's watching you, she will tell everybody what you do. So, having that integrity, being known for that. If I'm applying it, that's how people are going to know me by. Another thing that we've talked about privately is, in regards to knowing people, we always use Little Dave as an example, so now you're going to know. We use you as an example for this, for just knowing people. We say all the time, if somebody came up to us and said, I saw Little Dave kissing some woman or on a date, we'd be like, dude, just because that's not the kind of person he is. Like, I wouldn't have trouble saying, okay, you saw somebody look like Little Dave, unless the guy was standing there holding the license and you got a picture, and even then I'd be like, you photoshopped that. So that's how we want to know, everybody to know us by. We have, because of what we do. And you can't fool, that's the thing, you might fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool everyone all of the time. You just can't. So the last thing, and then I'll wrap it up because I remember there are 5 things that I've been really focused on. Making time for him, keeping my eyes on him, get it straight if I do slip up, applying it, and encouraging myself. And this was a big thing because I know it is wonderful. We read a scripture about coming to church to encourage each other. But when it comes down to it, I have to encourage myself. I cannot depend on other people. If I have my husband encouraging me, that is wonderful. If I have my mom encouraging me, that's great. But I have to rely on myself. And y'all sing a song about encouraging yourself in the Lord. Because I'm responsible to myself. Going to the gym, it's great. I work out with friends. But if they're not there, I'm going to be there. I'm going to encourage myself. I'm not going to wait for them. I'm going to make sure that I'm encouraged. And I looked at David in regards to this, in regards to encouraging yourself. David in the Bible, in regards to encouraging yourself. When he came to fight Goliath, and I always imagine here's Goliath and all the Philistines, and then here's, Saul, like, who's going to go out there to fight him? Oh my, he has no one. And here's this scrappy little scrawny dude, hey, I'll fight him. That's how I imagine it in my head. And no one has confidence in him. And I know that because when I was reading about that recently, even his brother was like, yeah, don't mind him. So y'all know basically the story. I just wanted to look at 1 Samuel 17:28. This is where his brother comes in. 1 Samuel 17:28. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he, David, spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, and thou art come down that thou mightst see the battle. So his brother was not encouraging him. He was like, he was discouraging him. Get out of here. But David was so confident because he knew he had God on his side. He knew that they didn't have God on their side. So he was like, come on, like, this is easy, and we know him talking about find the lion and bear and all that. But he encouraged himself. He did not have, like we see in basketball games, or like, yeah, people cheering for you, getting you pumped up. He didn't have his brother encouraging him. So if he was just relying on that, then it would have been over. But he knew that God was there. And in the times where we do feel discouraged, where I feel like I'm alone, and maybe it's all in my head, but even if I feel like I'm alone, I'm not alone. And if God's not good enough, if I have to have my mom, then I'm putting my mom above him. If I have to have my husband, if my husband's not encouraging me, then I just can't do it. Then I am putting my husband over God. I'm not making God a priority. It's a mind thing, and that's something that we have to get our minds right. And that's something that, we do a lot in the gym. It's in your mind. You can do it. You say you can't go one more minute, but you can go one more minute. You have to get it in your mind. And that's something we have with box jumps. I do not do box jumps. One time I did. Because I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I won't ever do it again. But it's in your mind, like, hey, and it was not up high either. So that was nothing. It was just a little one, okay? But I'm going to do this little one. And at first I was like, but then I did it. And when I did it, I felt better. Like having a goal, having my mind. So when I have him a priority, I know I'm going to meet all of these characteristics, all of these things that I've been looking at. And I'm sorry because I meant to do 12:30, but I did 12:33. So that's very close. And that's all.
Sometimes we just can't quite get everything he wants us to say in there, but you didn't quench the spirit. So you did right. But for the little time that we do come together, a few minutes is not going to really make the difference, because I read about when Paul preached on one occasion. I guess he preached to midnight, something like that.
Going to sleep all the time.
Yeah, falling, they had to raise from the dead and carry on. And, so we Christians get it, especially here. I make a point to keep it light. It will never be said and be true, although some people might say it, is that Costa got too heavy on it. That ain't going to happen again. I believe in keeping light to everybody, and get with myself. So thank God for that, because it's very, very important. And but it's amazing, as she was saying, how God prepares us as we'll spend time doing certain things. And as she shared, you can see why in the prophet's life, or the prophetess, how things that we see on a daily basis become things that God can use to teach us. And even the teacher to a certain degree, but especially the prophet and people that type of ministry. Apostles in there too, but it's amazing how he takes those things to use to bring home certain truths. And that's the key. Truths and principles by which we live. Everybody say live.
Yeah.
Live. And she pointed out by priorities. Basically, you preached the same thing that Deborah preached last week. You titled it different, but it's the same thing. When she said priorities, what's another word that we could use to say that we've been talking about all the time, that Deborah talked about last week, that makes us set priorities? When we get this, and it's a priority, kind of why? When we have this, thank you, Jesus. When we have this, thank you, Jesus, the priority is set. Hello, somebody. I got to write that down. When we have this, priority is set. And as she pointed out, those 5 things, their evidence or their checkpoints or their things that we can use as checkpoints to reveal that we have this priority, right? We have reverence. Reverence. By the way, were you here last week? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know what version of 1828 she's using? Is there more than one version, 1828 Webster's?
No.
Because when I looked at my 1828 here and my PC, I'm seeing what she said she didn't see. You know, so I'm not. I gotta get with her. But I had to. Let me get my glasses. I had to.
She does have a droid, but that shouldn't affect it on thing.
I ain't going to do that.
We all know that's an inferior product.
But when I went to my Webster's 1828,
You got to update every month.
give me just a few minutes that we got to get everybody out of here. But she brought home some very good points, and but reference is the key. She didn't say it by name, but she said it by what she talked about. And how did they get Frank's up to the turn that way? This way it is. You don't want that walk. You want the Webster. Slow down, fella. 1828. 1828. When I looked up reverence for 1828, the part about the fear acceptable that she read, the fear acceptable to God is a filial or child to parent type fear. That's what the word fear is defined to be. And awful reverence of the divine nature proceeding from a just esteem of his perfections, which produces in us an inclination to his service and an unwillingness to offend him. In my PC, 1828 is the same thing. Does anybody have an 1828 Webster saying different from that when it talks about a filial, the fear acceptable to God? I gotta get with it. Because that imperfections is 5 things. We're not gonna look it up now, but in the definitions that we had on paper printed, there were 5 perfections of God. That when it says, let me get back there. A just esteem or value, or what's another word for esteem? Respect. Yeah, it is. That's another word I'm looking for. I know value is one that's not in the definition of reverence. See, reverence is a deep respect, profound respect. But I'm trying to not use that word respect too much. But yeah, it is. Of his perfections. Value of his perfections. And that's what she's preaching about today. When we have a just value, somewhere look at the word esteem before me, so we can look at another definition of it. Slow down, Lord. When we have a just esteem of his perfections, it affects your mind. It affects your mind. It produces in us a leaning to his service and an unwillingness to offend him. In other words, please him, as she said. That's how Jesus said, I do always those things that please my Father. What is that saying? I am unwilling to offend him. I'm unwilling to offend him. And as she pointed out, since I know this will offend him, I ain't doing that. That reverence controlling you. If it's misuse of the time I've got available, that offends God. So I changed that. And sometimes we may not know what offends him until he lets us know this offends me. When you got reverence. But it's the fear of the Lord by which people depart from evil. See? But it's this, reverence. Reverence. But reverence is the priority. When we got this, the priority is set. Everything else that she pointed out falls right in place. All of those are the checks. All of those are things that we do because we reverence him. See, all I'm doing is stepping back and just focusing on that, so you can see everything she pointed out. All that's because of reverence. Priority, reverence. Don't want to offend him. I want to please him. Reverence. You see. And so, then you get back to Philippians 2, where he says, talk about Jesus who humbled himself and obeyed him even unto death. Then he said, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You see? And as she pointed out, when we have that priority where God is first, reverence reverence for him causes us to see what it is that controls how we live. And sometimes we can't put a finger on it, but that's what it is. Hello, somebody. And as she said, if you're that way, people are going to see it. They're going to know you. And as she was sharing, the Lord reminded me of Ruth and the husband that she finally got. Boaz. Thank you, Jesus. I got the both, but the ads wasn't coming to me. Boaz. Just leave it alone. And they got this saying about you and your Boaz. Not everybody marries a Boaz. Boaz is rich. Boaz had sense. But the thing is that Naomi said this about him. She said, when Ruth told her what she had done and what he said he was going to do, remember what he said? He was going to look into it and get it all taken care of. When Ruth came back and told Naomi, she hadn't met Boaz, but what she talked about, she knew Boaz because of where he was. She'd heard some things about him, but what he had and how he had been blessed under that covenant said what kind of man he was. And she said, he won't rest till he get it done. Glory! All because the man reverenced God. God's word was first place. God was first place. God was first place. And because of that, everything she talked about, it fell in place. Everything he talked about, and even Naomi talked about, he did all because of one reason. Psalm 111, verse 10. He that keeps God's commandments have a good understanding. And then David said this. He says, the transgression of the wicked, Psalm 36, verse 1, says, to my heart, there is no fear of God before that. That's why those folk that park in their parking spot, that's why they can do that. Don't bother them. There's no fear of God before their eyes. When we reverence God like we should, when you know you did something that would offend him or not please him, as she said, it bothers you. The other day I was thinking a little bit too much while driving in my car. Normally I'm watching and thinking at the same time, doing more watching than thinking. But this day I got to thinking a little too much. You know how your mind gets to thinking and then you don't see where you are? You can do some stuff like that. I ran a stop sign, David. Yeah. I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I I saw it too late. I was past the stop sign by the time I saw it. It was too late. I couldn't stop and go back. That'd been done. So I just kept going and asked God for forgiveness. See, but that was the time I would run a stop sign, speed, everything else, and it didn't bother me at all. All because the fear of God was before my eyes. But once I got that good understanding of reverence, now some things changed in my life. You know, and the last thing I said about that part is that when Jesus was fighting against the devil, because there's going to be some fights that you said, because the devil's acting like a roaring lion. Remember what he said? Man shall not live by bread alone, but live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Reverence. That's how we live. That's controls where you park. That controls how long you play basketball or don't play basketball. If you play basketball, if you can. I'm getting back there, ain't got there yet, but I'm on my way. You know, or whatever. Especially when it comes to right and wrong. Everything we do, as she read about the husband, the wife, the children, that's all. Living by what he has said, out of reverence. See, but we can explain it that way. You see, and that's why you want to obey your boss leader, boss man. And really, they're all attacking you, though. That's why God gave us a shield. If you wouldn't get attacked, you wouldn't need a shield. I used to think there wasn't attacking. God said, they are attacking you all. Matter of fact, I remind you of a sword that was thrown, and I watched it. Look, took me right in the chest. Words that were sharply spoken, designed to hurt, and he did exactly what it was designed to do. That's when Raphael came and said, receive your healing. And I said, God, I received my healing. And then he reminded me, I warned you, but you didn't put your shield up. Oh, you should have just done that. Moved. I didn't do that because I didn't know any better. But he taught me. Because, as she pointed out, I wanted to please him out of reverence. I was teachable now. You see. And then I have another one point I wanted to point out as she was talking about encouraging ourselves, and as she pointed out how encouraged David was when he faced Goliath. But then there came a time where David, scripture says, had to encourage himself. Go to 1 Samuel 30. Now he was already encouraged when he met Goliath. And he further encouraged himself as those things he was saying, because either what I said is going to discourage or encourage. So she pointed out, he did in fact encourage himself. But here, he has to do it because the circumstances are different. And depending on the circumstance, you either have to do it greater or lesser. This will be the last point I'm making, we're going to get out of here. But this is why we need one another. As I told WD, your ministry is needed. You either need to be encouraged or you need encouraging somebody else through song, through whatever, you know. But every joint supplies strength. 1 Samuel 30, let's look at verse, we'll just read 1 through 6 is all we're going to read. And it came to pass when David and his men would come to Ziklag, on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew none in it, either great or small, but carried them away, and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned, and the fire, and their wives, and their sons, and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Beniham the Jezreelitess and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was what? Greatly distressed, not just distressed, but greatly distressed, for the people, his own people, spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved. All the people was grieved. Every man for his sons and for his daughters, but David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And there he began to talk to God in verse 8 and do some things. And God tells him what to do. And the boy went out and got the rest of it, and they did that thing. You see? But she pointed out that the time in our lives, especially when something like this happens, well, you gotta know how to encourage yourself. And I'll say this: if you know your covenant that you got with God, if you know what's in that covenant, you're going to know, your reverence causes you to know God, but if you know what's in the covenant, if something like this happens, you can encourage yourself because you always got hope. Because our God is a God of hope. Amen? And so we learn from everyday experiences that she pointed out. We see the spiritual side as well as the physical side. Now, Holy Ghost will bring it up, just as he did with her. But are you teachable? And then can you teach somebody else, as she said, and as she did? Now, us ministers, as she said, we got obligation, responsibility. You that are not ministers, yeah, there comes a time when you should be able to teach also. But us more so. But all of us, as we learn, should be teachers once we learn. But preachers, as she said, and we've said over and over and over again, you got to make time for God to study. That Paul told Timothy, who was a young minister, so you can teach what God has taught you. Because you're going to have to answer to him in regard to your ministry. Not just as a Christian, but as a person who has been commissioned by God to teach his people. And that's the long and short of it. But as you saw when she got rolling, she had fun. Amen. It's a joy being who you are, ain't it? Now, I know it's not correct English, but it got my point across. Let's start up. She's going to dismiss us for talking to our Father. And go home and enjoy your families and know that you can enjoy them because of our Father and our desire to please him out of reverence for him, because there is no lack to them that fear the Lord. Glory. Thank you, Jesus. Sit in your hands. Dismiss us now.
Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to come together and start off our new week, making sure we're focusing on you and everything we do, thinking on Jesus and everything that we do. And let us just use everything that we learn to help us be the Christians and ministers that you have for us to be. In Jesus' name.